to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are usually two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. But today we are having our final TV Tuesday for
so
a
we
while.
are three.
So
we have cloned ourselves.
We have cloned ourselves into three people, apparently. Laura and I made another person between the two of us, which I don't want to meet that person.
Still very tall.
Still very tall, very awkward. And unfortunately, it is a male who claims he is a ginger but is really a brunette. So
no males allowed.
No boys allowed in this episode. And today we are finishing up our discussion of Wheel of Time series with The Eye of the World, episode 8. I know, it's so exciting. And before this, Hannah found all of her sister's American Girl doll cards from yesteryear in a jewelry box.
A treasure in itself.
Did we read through them? Were they racist?
Yes, and yes.
Definitely.
Were the pictures disturbing on a couple of those cards? Also, yes.
Mostly dealing with Addie, whose storyline is much more traumatic than everyone else's.
Some of them have stationery, and some of them
had to survive slavery.
Are literally trying to survive. These are very different life experiences.
And Kirsten, we decided, was probably from the from Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah, I think that was just a Laura Ingalls Wilder ripoff, but
it feels like it was based on it.
It must have been popular at the time.
It was, because I believe one of my sisters had Kirsten. No, wait, Kirsten. I thought she had Felicity, but no. She was mid-19th century, apparently. Yeah, she was Prairie style. So she had a lot to say about the Native Indians, and it was not great.
It was problematic.
Yes, but we are not discussing those cards anymore.
It would take too long.
And there's too many
things to get into.
It's a huge stack of cards. So Laura said, does it have Josephine? And I was like, no, it's during my other sister's childhood. She was too old for Josephine. So,
that's unfortunate. Josephine was my favorite.
It very much was. Samantha was my American Girl doll, the prissy one, as I said. So Laura, did you actually have an American Girl doll?
I had an American Girl doll, but it wasn't like one of those.
Was it the one that was meant to look like you?
Yeah. I got one that looked like me.
My friends used
but
to
it didn't look like me though, because like it had like thick, beautiful blonde hair, and I have like greasy, thin blonde hair, and I don't think it was similar. But
my friend growing up used to get one like every couple of years that looked like her and her siblings.
Every couple of years? Good Lord.
Yeah. And it was just really creepy. Like, it was like, I'm like, I don't think you need an updated age one. Like,
no.
we can stop after one.
It was like a huge deal for me to even just get one, I remember. So I can't even imagine like having them all the time.
I know. My little like nieces have some, and they have ones that are similar to their names, but different, like slightly different, but they're also spelled the same. So it's like if you were named Anna and you named your doll Anna, that's what two of my nieces did. So it's great. But anyway, let's get into episode 8 of the Wheel of Time.
The finale.
The finale of this season, and beyond, because as Moiraine says at the ending, this was just the first battle. But spoilers. So we come in on a little prologue that says it's taking place 3,000 years ago in what I like to call the lost city of Atlantis from the Disney Plus movie.
It was very futuristic.
And apparently,
which was confusing.
Okay, so people keep saying this, that the books are supposed to be like canon, maybe in this world. And to that I say, I don't like that theory, and I will not respond to it.
What?
Yeah, like
in this world?
Like in this here world, a lot of people are saying like Wheel of Time is set after the breaking of this particular world, and it's like a futuristic telling. And like this prologue is evidence of that. And I don't like that theory, and I will not respond to it. I don't know what it means, and I do not like it.
I don't understand why they went backwards in technology then.
I mean, because the world broke, Laura, and that's why we have this futuristic thing where there's like flying
okay, so they're
machines.
saying that okay.
Like Luz Theron happens like millennia from now. Okay. And really what happens with like people losing technology, I guess like computers and such, it's just because the world broke. I don't like that theory, mostly because like,
so it's like extinction, millions of years happen, then more people are created in a new world.
Know. I'm sure that this is a theory brought up by the books all the time or something, or on Reddit, but I don't care for it. So
I anyway, have not heard it, but that is intriguing. Okay.
But anyway, we're in the lost city of Atlantis, and we come upon a man who is asking a woman to help him cage the Dark One. And she swears that the way he's trying to do it will make the Dark One touch the power and corrupt it forever. And the man says not if he has her help. She says that they are both Aes Sedai, meaning at one point men and women were Aes Sedai. And that means they are servants of all, and this serves nothing but his pride. He swears that he will not fail without her, and she says he will have to. He says that the changing of the world is being decided in the nursery, and she says it doesn't have to be. And then she's like, goodbye, my friend, the dragon reborn, Luz Theron Telemond, or something, whatever his last name is. And then he's...
Good one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And then he says goodbye, her name.
Goodbye, you.
You. I've met you before. I've been in a bar where I know I've seen someone before, but don't know their name. And then he calls her the Tamerlane seat to show you that changes have been made since then. And then
she walks simple letter.
One little letter, the Tamerlane seat. And then she walks out and he comforts his baby, saying he will save the world. Smash cut into the opening of the Eye of the World. And then we come in on Rand and Moiraine walking through the Blight, and pretty much every scene that starts with them is just like, hey, they continue to walk through the Blight.
Yeah, basically.
They see men decaying into the ground. Rand asks what's happening, and Moiraine says boys from the borderlands who test themselves and come up wanting and to not touch anything. And I love the way Rosamund Pike says the Blight is a rot. Like sometimes she just like pronunciates a word so viciously that it's
yes,
like, oh,
she does that sometimes, and I'm like, okay, very English of you.
Yeah,
to like, overpronounce that word.
The Blight is a rot, and that poisons whatever it touches. And then we go back to Faldara, and a queen is having the most ADR crying I've ever heard on TV, where like the actress has not a tear near her, but it like shows her trying to pack, and she's like, and I was like, they did not have good sound. She had to do that in the sound booth. Like, it just don't make her cry in that moment. And Perrin
usually she's like about right there at any given moment.
Apparently the like limit of a queen crying is seeing her almost cry.
She can bring the tears to the surface, but they can't come out.
It can't come out because it just does not sound realistic.
Okay.
And Perrin is standing over there with his face saying, we can't go after them. We will die in the Blight. And she loves Rand, and she's like, I love him. And like Perrin sits down next to her.
Because literally like moments ago he had been like, I'll be your warder. And then he was like, JK, I gotta go. I actually realized.
Well, I mean, at this point, he did wonder if he was the dragon. Well, he was trying to hide from the fact that he was.
I would say he was denying that.
He was denying it, but like,
don't make promises
to make this promises you can't.
Yeah.
And Perrin sits down and he's like, I love him too. And it's like, maybe the last episode Perrin was actually in love with Rand and not a queen.
I would prefer that. But...
Me too. And then she's like, are we all right? And he's like, we'll always be all right. And he comforts her. And I'm like, oh, so the storyline of him being in love with you didn't need to happen? Cool.
That was asked. I was like, no one is all right with what is happening here between you three.
We all hate it.
No, no one's all right.
Again, Rand and Moiraine are walking. And I put in the sentence, Rand continues to walk with Moiraine and her shoulder pads. That wig has seen better days. Because it's like
at
so
this point, I was
disheveled.
wondering, like, was this the last scene that we got? Because that hair has been through it.
They're like, we cannot dirty up the clothing in this show, but that wig will not be brushed, not once.
It looks bad.
Again, the fact that both Laura and I in the same scene were like, ooh, that wig. Like, it's not good.
And let me just say, people, I don't have fabulous hair, so I'm not one who usually like notices these kinds of things. But if even I'm noticing, we know it's bad.
It was Flyaway Central. They were like, she will be showing how tired she is through hair and nothing else.
Yeah.
And so she knows they're getting closer. They can rest for a bit, 30 minutes, no more. Rand asks what some rocks are that are all piled up on top of each other. And she says they're the 7 towers of Malkir. He knows that that's Land's home, and it looks like it's been there for 1,000 years. And she goes 40 at most because of the blight. And a few years ago, it was miles from the blight. It's being taken over as the Dark One gets closer to breaking out. Mm-hmm. He asks if it's hard to leave him behind, and she throws him water, not answering him. Land is standing on his balcony with Nynaeve watching him. She asks if he is all right and if he can feel anything, and he notes she doesn't want to be followed, as in Moiraine. And then Nynaeve is like, when I followed you guys from the 2 rivers, I wasn't tracking you. I tracked Moiraine because she has a tell, and I'll show you what that is.
Which was interesting.
I know. I thought I actually really liked it because she's like, she has a tell. I'm just not telling you, because it shows that he's also too close to Moiraine to be
even
as observant with her.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it shows kind of a little bit of Land's weakness. And he asks if Nynaeve will let him go without her, and she tells him to bring Rand back. And it's like, well, don't make promises you can't keep. He calls her remarkable, and she notes a wisdom never weds, but she may not be a wisdom if she goes to Tar-Phalan. And this is the moment I love in the books. It's so funny to me. And he's like,
I was glad that they kept this in because so many people love this quote.
I just, in the first book, I found it so funny because like their romance was like so out of left field.
Yeah.
In this, it's very sweet and very sad.
It works perfectly in this.
Right. In the book, you and I made fun of this
a lot.
Where it's like, hey, we didn't really know they were in love with each other, but they just stood near each other for an entire book. And then
I also did laugh when they said this in the show, just because I was reminiscing about the book and I was like, haha, but it actually works.
But he says he will hate the man she chooses because the man will not be Lan, but he will love him if he makes her smile. That she is beautiful as the sunrise and fierce as a warrior, and she is a lioness. She is crying, and he wipes the tears away, and then he tells her to show him how to find them. Rand falls asleep and wakes up, and Moiraine is like, what did you dream of? Dreams are important this close to the Dark One. And he says the Dark One is coming. Then Moiraine is stabbed through the mouth, and all of a sudden we see the bad CGI Dark One standing there with his branchy face and lights everywhere.
I was very nervous that was going to be the Dark One. I was like, no. But luckily they changed it into a person.
We should have been more afraid of frozen babies. But
We'll get there.
But Branch Man is like, I didn't expect it to be you. And Rand shoots him with an arrow. And then in one of the funniest CGI scenes, he pushes the arrow into his weird face and it shrinks in. And it reveals a person, thank fucking God. And he goes, there.
That was a relief.
And then the Dark One says what we were all thinking, there, that's better.
Yeah.
And then he notes that Rand looks nothing like the quote-unquote him, but it's still him, meaning the dragon reborn, and he sees it behind his eyes. Rand like pushes his hand away, and he asks him what his plan is, or he asks Rand what his plan is, loose, therein, and he says this is a dream, and the Dark One is like, does it even matter? The Dark One tells Rand to sit down, and it's pathetic coming with one Aes Sedai, because the last time he came with 99 companions stronger than hers. And he's asked if Rand has ever touched the power before, and it's like, not when he meant to. Rand draws the sword, and he notes it's a heron-marked blade. And he says it's from Rand's father. But the Dark One is like, your father's dead. And he's like, oh, you mean that shepherd, Tam Althor? And he's like, oh, you really think he's your father? And it's like, that man raised him. He gets to call him daddy.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're as a fool as the Dragon Reborn. It's like, this apparently adoption doesn't exist in this world. But he does know that every turning has its surprises, and Rand insists it's a dream, and he's like, you're stubborn, now come follow me. But Rand stabs himself instead, and he wakes up. Moiraine asks what the dreams are, because the dreams have meaning, but he refuses to tell her. He becomes Rand, and he's like, what's your plan? You always have a plan, tell me now. And she pulls out a sa'angreal that was made before the breaking, and it's like a small idol with the man sitting pretzel style. And if he channels into it, it will increase his power 100-fold. Rand holds it and asks what he does with the power. And she says to put him where he belongs for another 100 years. And Rand is like, oh, you just want me to page a Dark One. Cool, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, like, no problem. Never done this before. Cool. All right.
And then he's about to walk away, and he's like, you thought it was a queen, right? And I'm like, when did she think it was a queen? And he's like, it all adds up. You taught her how to channel. You introduced her to the Amerlin seat. And I was like, he also introduced Nynaeve, and like, she only knows.
If anything, I feel like they kind of acted like it was Nynaeve. But
yeah,
what do I know?
And also, it doesn't make sense that where he's like, you thought it was a queen all this time, and it's like, well, she knows
she was hardly around channel. Her.
Also, like, it's canon, and like, she even discusses this later in the show, where it's like, I can't teach you how to channel. I'd rather teach you how to breathe air. Like, women can't teach men how to channel. So it's like, no, she didn't think it was a queen. She just knew how to teach her. So exactly. Like, it just didn't make sense for them to suddenly put in the show, like, you thought it was the queen. And he's like, I thought it was her too. And it's like, no, you didn't. You knew it was you.
No one thought it was a queen.
It's bad.
Maybe a queen. I don't
know. And then we cut to Nynaeve. She's sitting trying to listen to the wind, and Egwene asks her what she hears. She notes she hears nothing after she channeled the first time. She asks if Egwene hears anything, and Egwene listens to the wind. She hears the same thing they heard on Beltane, but if that was a whisper, this is a scream. And then we cut back to Rand and Moiraine, and I'm like, stop showing them walking so much. They hear something crashing, and Rand pulls an arrow, and Moiraine channels, but it's just a branch. She kind of laughs it off. And again, he asked for her to teach him how to channel, and she's like, I can't do that. Especially because this close to the source, like, it could lead to his madness. But she's like, don't worry, when we get there, I love this as a theory, the fear and adrenaline will hit you enough to channel. And
I feel like that's a really big risk to be right. Like, hopefully enough adrenaline will be pumping through you that you'll be like, I can do it.
And then Rand asks a good question. How can you be sure? And instead of being like, well, it just kind of has to be this way because I haven't thought of anything else, she's like, well, when I was a novice, I wanted to learn from someone who was stronger. I had trouble channeling. So she came into my room and at night alone, which feels creepy. And then she's like, and then she beat me until the pain and fear were so overwhelming. I was able to do it without thinking. And when your life is on the line, the power will be there. Sure.
Concerning.
Then we cut over to the tavern, and Min is like pouring beers, and she says to a man, you're gonna want to move. And then a queen walks in, and they're like, what did you tell Moiraine? And she's like, I'm not gonna tell you guys, but everything I say always happens. And then she sees Nynaeve choking, like turning gold, and then there are warning bells in the city. We go over to what I call the Faldara elite, and Amelisa is like, I told you so, brother. And they're like, there are 60 Murdral coming towards the castle, which means 5,000 to 10,000 Trollocs. And they think that there are dark friends within the walls. The king says they must send all the men to the Gap, which is like a huge wall between the city and like the Bly area, to keep them out of Faldara. But the sister says it won't hold. He readies his guard to send to the fortress. He says she knows what to do, and she knows the Gap won't hold. And then Moiraine and Rand come to the Eye of the World, and they must walk down it. It's like this huge pit. It was really interesting.
I actually liked this. I thought this was a good set design.
It was very creepy. It kind of looks like an olden mine.
Because like when I pictured it in the books, I don't know why I was picturing something very green and like kind of pretty, almost like Secret Garden type thing.
I think it was green and pretty in the books. So just so people know, this is a little bit of a divergent from the books. Like, it's much creepier.
I kind of like them making it creepy.
I approved of it being creepy. But then Rand goes, this is it, isn't it? And I'm like, this is the dumbest question you can ask. No, it's another hole in the ground. But
this is very like, you know how people like get so annoyed with the hero or heroine in a story when it's like, yes, of course, you're just being an idiot, but it's like they have to ask these questions.
Well, because like you need it for us to like remember that they're going to the eye of the world, but you could have Moiraine be like, the eye of the world, like, or like people haven't set foot near this in a century, but instead it's like Rand being like, this is it, isn't it? And then he's like, I've been here before, and it's like, you know what, I didn't need this. But then he says that whoever goes down with him will die, and he asks if that includes Moiraine, and she like just looks at him like, obviously, stop asking stupid questions. Right, but like, he does ask her to stay behind, but she continues walking with him. Lan is going hunting for his BFF, and he sees the towers of Melchior. I would like it noted that he's moving so much faster than they are. Like, is he running through the blight and finding this towel?
I guess I didn't notice that, but it would make sense that he's in a bigger rush than them. They don't think that he's following, so they're kind of just taking their time.
Fair. But also, like, it's supposed to be a day's travel, and he doesn't leave. And, like, they leave during the night, and they definitely had to walk a ways to get there. Mm-hmm. But he leaves that morning around, like, 10 a.m., and they definitely left at, like, 11 p.m. or, like, 2 in the morning. So they have, like, quite a few hours.
I can't explain the speed situation. But then, as we get farther on, though, I guess we don't know the length of time that he's actually down in there, you know?
That's
so fair. I guess it could be explained away by that.
And I guess, like,
they spend hours in that dream sequence situation.
That's fair. We don't know how long it is. Then we cut over to the king and his sister, and her being like, "Wear Dad's armor, you asshat who never listens to me." And he's like, "No, I'm a man. I wear my own armor." And she keeps trying to talk sense into him. He's like, okay. She's like, the gap won't hold. Try to maintain the city. And he's like, no, the women will hold the city like always. And he then says, I should have listened to you. We should have asked for help from the White Tower. But now we're going to fail no matter what. So I won't listen to you the second time or wear the armor like you're asking of me, because I have no respect for you. But he notes that the Dark One is waking and Tarmangaiden is here, and this is the last battle. And that what they're trying to do is just slow down the forces. So I don't know. Moiraine and Rand are like walking down to get to the bottom, where it's like kind of creepy, but like there's greenery and like a little symbol in the middle that kind of looks like a yin and yang symbol. And she asks him what he remembers, but he says he doesn't know. It keeps slipping away from him. He sees Luz Theron standing in the middle of the place, and he's like, I fought somebody here, that guy. But he looks like, and it's like the Dark One. And then he like says that they were standing over the symbol. In this scene, Moiraine is doing a great job of looking very scared.
I thought the acting actually out of these two was very good.
Yes. And then he touches the ground, and all of a sudden he is in a shack, and there's like a baby carriage in there.
Yeah,
and
it's a dream sequence.
Yeah, and this might be like the baby from Min's vision. And Egwene comes out, and she's like, oh, have you made the lantern? Because you know Matt won't do it no matter how many times he promises, and we need to go to Beltane with Joya, their baby. But this baby is like 3 in this dream sequence,
and they're both huge.
They're way too young to have a baby this age. Like, it's like if they had
a baby 3 years ago.
It looks like they're babysitting. Like, it was so distracting to watch them hold this giant baby who was not a newborn.
And then it gets worse. Keep going.
Yeah. Then we flash to Moiraine trying to wake Rand up, and the Dark One appears. She tries to channel to like hit him with daggers, and he stops her from being able to channel. And like you see weaves going into her, and suddenly she's gasping. But it does like flicker to his hand, where we see weaving in his hand like come into a knot, which it's a question on if she has been stilled or if he's just shielded her and tied off his weaves, and that's him doing that. But he notices that it must feel awful to have the power at the end of your fingertips, but you cannot touch
Can't
it.
touch it.
We go over to the video game portion of this TV show where there are Trollocs getting ready to storm the gap. And then we see
this was poor CGI.
we see the men from Faldara charging. The first 14 riders are real, and the rest are definitely not.
Yeah.
They start.
I get it, money, but still.
Again, this is Amazon. Jeff Bezos, just
quit taking laps around the world in your rocket and give us a better TV show.
Yeah. They are trying to defend the gap. There are foreigners leaving the city, and they're supposed to allow all foreigners to leave, but it's noted that any Shannara must fight. Min is leaving, and
which I
Annalisa,
found this odd that she would peace out, but
I mean, at this point, all we know about Min is she can foretell, and she's not into anyone's business. So I feel like she probably just looked at someone, and it's like, it shows I'm leaving, so I'm leaving. Annalisa is giving orders that women should be burning the bridges once the gap falls, and every torch in the city must be lit to not hide from a fade, and any woman who can channel must go meet Annalisa to help
even
her.
Even a spark.
And then Uno and like the contingency back at the palace start tearing up the floor of the throne room. Nynaeve is trying to get Perrin and Egwene to leave. And she Egwene is like, we can't just not help people. And she notes that she left Two Rivers to bring everyone home, and she already lost Matt and Rand. She can't lose them. Very Nynaeve, but also very much like, hey girl, there's a war going on. Bigger things are happening than the promise that you made a very long time ago.
Unfortunately, this isn't going to work out the way you wanted it to.
This is Nynaeve back at the beginning of this journey, and even in the last episode, Perrin is like, so much has changed since we left the Two Rivers, and Nynaeve in this episode is like, no, it didn't. And it's like, lots have changed.
It's like everything's changed. Seriously,
calm down.
Adapt.
And she also doesn't know that Egwene and Perrin have a choice on whether to stay or not. Egwene is something like, I'm not leaving these people. And she's like, well, I can't lose you, so I guess I'm staying. And it's like, okay, this is a weird conversation.
Right.
So, and then it shows the men at the gap. This is there's a lot of cross cutting between these where it's like people are fighting at the gap. They're hitting them with arrows, and there's so many Trollocs, and it's a bad video game.
Moving legs.
I know. And then people run into Nynaeve and Egwene, and they're like, oh, Amalisa needs every woman who can channel. You guys can channel. So they go outside the city, and Amalisa will connect with all the women and try to help the gap once it falls, stop everyone in their tracks. Perrin is stuck back at the castle with Loyal, and he wants to help others. Well, and he hates that everyone else is fighting without him. Loyal says that there are other things than violence. And Perrin's like, I just don't know what to do. And I love this part because, again, Perrin's whole trope in this season is am I violent or not? And Loyal is I've noted that if you ever want to help someone, you just have to ask.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
I thought that was really sweet.
I know. And then Rand is back in his dream world. And it's hey, all I remember is the last time I touched an eye, and then I'm here. What happened? And he starts doubting Egwene. She's like, well, we came back after everything, and da 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 da. And then he tests her by asking her.
Yeah, he's poking holes in this dream.
But he's like, what was that thing when we were children and we visited that tree? What did we carve in there? She says the longest sentence you could ever
Do you have the exact quote?
Yes, I do.
Read it. It bothers me.
Our place for this life and the next, forever.
At what age did they carve that?
Children. Why did they carve a note? Why did they carve?
So, first of all, it's very hard to carve things in trees.
It's so hard to go. Were they weaving? Were they channeling back then? It's so much easier.
Also, what age did they carve this?
We were children. We were 6.
Well, I mean, honestly, when I think of child, I'm kind of thinking 6 to 10-ish.
What if they were 6 and they just did that thing where you fake carve something and you're like, that's what I carved?
Still bothered. I'm still bothered by this quote.
Back when he was picking her berries, when he was a child, and neither of them remember.
the berry picking, like, oh, here's a treat for a girl I have a crush on thing seems childlike. Carving this very long quote that seems very mature into a tree.
Our place for this life and the next forever.
Do you know any 6-year-olds or 6 to 10-year-olds will say that would carve that into a tree?
Okay, if they thought they were 12 and then they put our place in a tree, okay, fine. Sure. I will suspend my disbelief that 12-year-olds are that poetic.
2 words versus
2
all
words
of this.
versus that phrase. It's so long, it's so silly, and then he's like, it's really you, and he kisses her. So at this moment, the Dark One has caught him in a trap where he thinks this is his real life, and then he decides to freeze everything,
and he freezes, terrifying.
Okay, he
freezes the baby
in one of the most horrifying movement. Like the baby is
like mid, like reaching up to grasp something. And
she is mid falling out of that crib. Like that crib is about to come tumbling down.
Hideous, but she's like smiling, and I'm extremely bothered by it because they kept flashing back to that, like cutting away to it, and every time it would pop up, I would be scared because
when I tell you that Laura and I watched this together the first time, and every time that baby came up, Laura was so horrified. I kept being like, "Why did this so
creepy?" It was so creepy. Why could they not have just like had the baby just lay there with like arms at its side? Why did it have to be in that creepy pose?
I don't know. And then the poor actress who's a queen. Like I think about this anytime people have a moment where they're supposed to be frozen. That day of filming, she literally had to stand there with her arms up like she was holding Rand while they had major dialogue. Like, could you imagine if like one of them got the giggles?
They probably do have the technology that they maybe had to just like film her doing that for a little bit, and it wasn't an entire give us good day that she had to stand there.
Let's hope, but like they couldn't even get us good CGI Trollocs or good Dark One face. So
I mean, there's a chance. Maybe could have been like a green screen thing that they.
Let's hope so. Because I always think about that. Then
I was much more bothered by the baby.
I mean, fair. And then the Dark One is like, this is a version of a life you could have with the power inside you. You can remake the world in your image. And I was like, oh, so we're watching Last Temptation of Christ. And the Dark One wants to help him. Back where Uno is, they're like still opening up the floor of the throne room. Perrin and Loyal come in and they ask what they can do to help. And Perrin picks up a pickaxe to like help them bust up the floor. The women are getting ready to join and channel. Oh, and then the Dark One is also talking to Moiraine outside with like, well, she can't channel. And he's like, I wonder if Rand chooses the light or the darkness. And Moiraine like whips out a knife and puts it up to Rand's throat. And she's like, I'm going to murder him if he doesn't choose the light. I will
kill him if he doesn't.
Because this is bigger than Rand. It's like, okay, bet.
Thanks.
And then the Dark One is now messing with Rand in the dream. He's harming fake Egwene. We keep seeing the baby, and Rand is like,
just keeps appearing.
I know. And Rand is like, stop it. And he's like, I didn't think you thought this Egwene was real. And it's like, she's not, but he still doesn't want to see the love of like
no one his wants life to see right that now. Baby. It was murdered.
Yes, it was the baby, not the slitting of Egwene's throat that was the issue for Rand.
It was the issue for everyone.
And then Rand is like, how can I make this real? And the Dark One is like, it's so simple. Like, in the context is like, just be evil. Then we cut over to someone knocking on a side door in the kingdom, and they use a keyword, and the women just open it up. But like in this scene, they say it, and then the women open it up and immediately are like, who told you the password? And it's like, if you knew to ask this question, then don't open the door. But Put-on Fane enters with Myrddraal, who decapitate the 2 women who should have asked a question. And then they head into the palace. The group who are smashing up the floor open it, and they note that it's the Horn of Valir. And it calls the pattern's greatest heroes when someone blows it. And Perrin's like, oh, so we're going to blow it and help the gap. And they're like, no, it's for the Dragon Reborn.
Don't touch it, Perrin.
We only busted up the floor because we think Tarmon-Gaden is coming. We're not sure it's coming, but you can't
Perrin,
touch
don't
the
even
horn.
Think about it.
Plot contrivance, okay? Then Trollocs break through the gap, and Amelisa like joins up with all the women.
All the
We
women, there's
see,
like not a lot. It was what,
well, I mean, there's like
4?
6. I would say there's 6 altogether, maybe, or maybe there was only there's 4 or 5
I think
women
there was
altogether.
2.
There's 2 who aren't Egwene, Amelisa, or Nynaeve.
Yeah, so there's 5
So
total, I think.
5 total. But we notice that when she like connects with all the channeling, most of the channeling is coming from Egwene and Nynaeve.
Yeah.
Nynaeve being the most. She has like so
Because it's
many
like they're all
channeling.
connected with like this big pipeline, and
Well, it's
the
very
brightest
much like
power is coming out of Egwene and Nynaeve.
yeah, and it's very much like, well, these 2 women really run circles around the
Right.
others, but Nynaeve runs circles around Egwene. So Trollocs are running towards them, which is always funny to Hannah. And then Perrin like is back at the palace, and he sees Podon Fane walking, and he's like, stop, and he picks up a real axe to go after him. And then we cut over to Rand and the Dark One, and the Dark One is like, let yourself feel empty of everything, and then turn everything else you want. And it's like, if he's empty of everything, what does he want?
Right.
And then it's like, like look at the baby, and he's like and it's like, just think about how much you want her to be real. And it's like,
we don't.
She's creepy.
Put her arms down.
They could have kept the baby a newborn who looks more normal with that as a couple, and they could have kept her sleeping, but instead they're like toddler and dancing in a crib. It doesn't make sense. But Rand starts channeling, and then the Dark One tells him to release everything. Scenes like this always make me laugh, because here's the thing. Rand is sitting there channeling, and you see the weaves around him, and his face is like very serious. But if you think about this day when he's acting, he's just standing there alone with no weaves, looking constipated. Like, if you really...
You're just thinking about like how when it's like Lord of the Rings and they have to pretend like Andy Serkis is Gollum. And they're like, nice green screen suit.
But at least then, like, he's still acting. Like, there's something to act.
There's something to look at or whatever.
But like, it's, again, there was once a TikTok where it was showing like CW actors and actresses who are like Supergirl and the Flash, and the Flash is supposed to like be making whirlwinds with his hands like at super speed, but it's just him like turning like
moving his hands circle quickly, like
and
PE exercise.
Supergirl is supposed to be using like her super breath, but it's just a woman who's like blowing.
Oh jeez.
Like, I always think about that now, and it's like, oh, Rand's just standing in the middle. Like, this actor has to stand there looking constipated. Like, that's it.
Basically.
So, but then his weaves start to like show blackness. And he notes that Rand is channeling to either break or strengthen his chains to Moiraine. The women are channeling, the horn is out. Then the men hear some fades. The Dark One is telling Rand to make Egwene and the baby all hers, and then he is ready. And then we note that the women are drawing so much power into Amelisa, and she's taking it all. She throws up her hands and sends out a huge weave, killing all the Trollocs in their tracks. Egwene is standing there shunned and almost crying. We see Nynaeve feeling everything. And then we see some of the women burning up from the power channeling too much.
Right, because it was previously established that they can burn out. And
yes, if they have too much of the like
episode
power
before this. Yeah.
So there was foreshadowing to this moment. Then we cut over to Rand, who's channeling, like, and it looks like he's going to put weaves into the creepy baby. Ugh. But then we see in his hands, he's holding the saw Angreal. And the Dark One is like, what are you doing? And you could remake the world just like you
during
wanted.
My monologue?
Oh my goodness, were you just getting me to teach you how to channel, you rascal boy?
Did I just do a typical villain thing and not pay attention?
Could I have just trapped you in this world and you would have gone on believing you were here?
I thought I had you fooled.
It's like, I didn't fall for your magic trick. Illusions, loose there.
Yeah.
My illusions.
My illusions.
If
only we could say that with Will's voice.
I know. And he's like, you could remake the world just the way you want. And Rand goes, what about what she wants? She doesn't want this, because Rand learned how not to be an incel in this season. And he says,
so like, this was okay, but I still found that like kind of annoying, where I was like, okay. What about
I mean, at least
she
he didn't want a fake robot of a wife.
I mean, that's why I was less
Again,
annoyed, but the whole like, what she wants. It was like, okay.
Here's the thing. That's the bare minimum you could want for your wife.
Yes.
She had free will to join our relationship.
Exactly. She wants bare to minimum. Be here.
She wants to be here. She's happy. She's like, it's just like, hey, the woman I love has a personality. So I can't just make her do this. And it's like, I guess that's romance. Thank you for not, like, could you imagine if he ever like talks to Egwene about this and he's like, you don't understand. I could have remade the world and made us like together.
I could
have
like forced you to be in a relationship with me. Like,
but it wasn't even like the real Egwene. It's like you could have cloned me into your perfect person. That's creepy. And I don't think it's okay. Like the fact that the Dark One thought this was something that could work, where it's like, hey, what if it's not the woman you loved, but it's a carbon copy of her and you get to fuck her and she doesn't have a choice in the matter.
I feel like this dream sequence type scenario though happens in other things where it's like you have the hero who's tempted with this illusion and it's like they have to poke holes in the situation and be like, oh wait, this isn't real. And then there is that scenario that you're saying where it's like, how weird would that have been though? And how long could they have possibly kept this up where it like years down the road is the Dark One like, oh my gosh, I've run out of Egwene storylines.
I just don't know what they put on that second tree. It was a smiley face. They were 5.
I can't remember. An emoji? I don't know.
I just think like it would have been more effective to like have Rand being gaslit into believing that this was his actual wife. And like, Rand, we returned from the eye. I don't know. And like bring Matt into the scenario, bring Perry into the scenario, then to have it be like the
futuristic thing.
Or like have the Dark One be like, you could make the world in your image. You could make a woman who has zero choice in the matter. And and Rand's like, that's not enticing to anyone. And it's like, nor should it be. Right. Like, it's a weird, like, because after I watched the scene the second time, I was like, so I guess what we learned, again, I said, like, I guess what we learned is Rand isn't an incel. Like, he wants a woman to have a choice to be with him. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Like, it's just a weird way to take this final showdown in this episode to be like, I just couldn't make a clone of Egwene. Couldn't do it. Had to give it the choice.
Yeah, agreed. It's weird.
Just like gaslight him into thinking he's in a different reality, and like it would have worked so much better. But nope. But anyway, Rand is like, she doesn't want this. She wants a choice, and the woman he loves cares about things and wants to go to Tar Valon and wants to learn things. And this woman isn't real. And then he uses the power to recapture the Dark One, cracking the floor in the process. Moiraine asks what happens, and Rand says he did it. Then we see the most useless tracking I've ever seen, where Perrin is walking down the halls until a bat flies at him. And then he learns he could have just stayed in the room he was already in because he hears yelling and has to run back down the hall. And he runs into Myrdal and Padan Fain, like... annihilating everyone, and Padan Fain is stabbing Loyal, which like not okay.
No, that was sad.
And then we cut on over to the women who are burning up, and Nynaeve is asking Amelisa to stop, but Amelisa can't stop because she's accepted too much of the power, and she says she can see and feel everything. Egwene screams that she is burning, and the women keep like falling, and you can tell Egwene is almost about to die. And Nynaeve instead covers Egwene, protecting her. She reminds Egwene of what she learned in the Two Rivers and what her braid signifies, that she comes from all these women who are there to stand with her, and it's not a man, but they stand with her. And then Amelisa lets the power overtake her, and she and Nynaeve fall to the ground. And then Egwene, again, just like very horrifying moments that I'm like also slightly weird enough to be humorous. Nynaeve has fallen on Egwene, and she's just sitting there, like, crushed under her body, screaming, like, Nynaeve! Like, crying. And I'm like, I need her to push the Nynaeve off, but like it fades to black on like her underneath
being
this
trapped
woman's
under a body.
and I just didn't like that. But okay. And then like Padanfain puts the thing again, clean off that dagger. You just stab someone with it, but instead he just puts it right into his belt. And we see that it's Matt's dagger with the jewel.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, Perrin, did you think I came to Two Rivers every bell time just to sell like all of these lanterns, you idiot? I claim for you guys. And then he calls all 5 of them ta'veren.
Mm-hmm.
They're focal points of the wheel, and usually 1 to 2 are born in a generation, but there were 5 in one village, and it's what he saw, it's what Moiraine saw, and it's what his lord saw, showing that bum-ba-da-dum, Padanfain is hot and a dark friend.
Surprise to no one.
We cut on over to Egwene trying to heal Nynaeve, and Rand stands with Moiraine. Then we cut to like a voiceover of Padanfain being like, the dark is something you need it for balance. And they were never trying to murder the 5 of them. They were trying to bring the 5 to the dark one. It's all about balance. And he notes that like the world just needs this. He knows that some of them or all of them are going to turn to the shadow. And as he says this, it shows Matt and Tar Valon. Then we flow back to Moiraine, who says they can't go back to Faldara right away, even though she doesn't say why. And Rand says he isn't going back. He felt the madness. And he asks if it's true that men who can channel will kill all of the people they love. And Moiraine agrees that it is. He asks for a favor, just one, to say that he died. She goes, I can't lie. And he goes, you'll find a way.
Figure something out.
But also, this is also a hint. And if you guys don't want like spoilers for the books, kind of, this is a hint that Moiraine is likely shielded, because if she were stilled, the oath rod would have like broken her oaths. So the fact that she's still under them, but Rand notes that Moiraine owes him, and then he leaves. She asks where he will go, and he just says goodbye. Fain tells Perrin that it's not the end, it's the beginning. You thought he was defeated? Wahaha. And then Perrin picks up the axe to kill Padanfain, and Padanfain is like, ha 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 ha. The tiniest push and you choose the dark. And it's like, is killing a bad guy
the dark? The dark?
I don't think so, but apparently it is in this show. But he says that and I get it with the whole like Perrin is trying to pick between like violence and peace. I get it, but also it's just it could have been done a little bit better.
Sure.
But he does say that all 5 have a part to play. Rand finds Moiraine. She says Rand is gone, intimating that he is dead when he asks. She says she cannot touch the source and cannot unmask their bond. We go over to Egwene, who's now crying over Nynaeve, no longer trapped under her body. She is trying to channel a little bit, but she wasn't able to heal her. And then all of a sudden there is a channel going into Nynaeve, and she heals and she wakes up coughing. Another thing is like, why when people come back from the dead, do they always wake up
They always
coughing?
like cough.
It's always like, and it's like, why?
Maybe it's like a gasp for air situation.
Maybe. Well, usually it's a gasp for air or a cough. So usually it's like a or a cough, cough. But why can't it ever just be like a jolt or something? Like, I don't know. It's just very strange.
I don't know. I feel like it's if you haven't been breathing, you would either cough or gasp for air.
I feel like it's just like a trope. Like people don't actually research what you would do.
I mean, Egwene, how would we really know?
I mean, I guess usually if you're like doing CPR and someone starts breathing again, they do cough. So
I feel like if people have stopped breathing, then they're going to cough or gasp.
You changed my mind. You're right. But Egwene hugs her and she's crying. Then we see Rand walking through the blight. He looks back into like the deeper blight because he was like walking up a hill. And then he starts moving towards mountains. Then we see Lan and Moiraine is holding Sindiar. And like it was broken in the floor. He asks her how Heartstone could have been broken because it's not supposed to be possible. And she says she thought it couldn't be broken either. He asks what it means. And she says that this wasn't the last battle. She fears it was the first. So she's going to have to like admit in episode 1, season 2, that Rand is alive. Like I'm right. That. And then we see a little girl playing on a beach. And then all of a sudden we see ships coming towards her. They close in on the ships, and 4 women come out, 2 with muzzles on their face and 2 behind them. The 2 behind them say something and make a movement with their hands, and the 2 women in front of them start channeling a huge tidal wave, and it starts coming crashing towards the beach. And thus ends season 1 of the Wheel of Time. And if you do not know, if you have not read any of these books, that are the Senshin, who will be antagonists of season 2. Bum, bum, bum. Laura, what did you think of this episode?
I was mixed on it originally.
Yeah.
But I think, like, reflecting back on it, I'm fine with it.
I feel this. I think when you and I watched it, we were mixed, leaning towards negative, but I also think sometimes when you're watching stuff with friends and laughing about creepy babies, there tends to be a little bit of a what.
So yeah.
Like you and I were joking through a lot of it. And when I rewatch it by myself, I was like, yeah, this all track. Like,
yeah.
I didn't love the Fall Dara connection of women where they all burned up and Egwene saving Nynaeve, because I think that changes a lot of what's coming.
I did not enjoy that. I did not enjoy the Perrin Loyal thing. I liked the quote that Loyal said to Perrin, but as far as what they did with like Perrin Padan Fain, I was very underwhelmed by that.
I felt like there wasn't enough of Padan Fain being the big bad of season 1. Like they almost wanted you to question, even though we've seen him multiple times. And like in the last episode, we saw him and Perrin's like, I think I just saw Padan Fain. Like there wasn't enough subterfuge of is he alive or is he dead? Like there wasn't
any setup of who he was really, even compared to some of these other characters for anyone to be shocked. So
and like in the first book, he does run into Rand and he's like, don't tell anyone where I am. And Rand's like, they'll be happy to know you're alive. And he's like, no, you can't trust people. And it worked because it was very much under layers of like, he seems like he's not okay, but like, I do know that I can't trust Aes Sedai. And so his was more like, what's going on with him? When are we going to find out that he's a bad guy? Because like we all knew, but there was more of like, he's definitely a bad guy. When is it coming to the surface? But in the show, it felt like they were trying to say like, no. Padan Fain's definitely dead. But I'm like, but in the first episode, he's just calmly walking away.
Right.
So you needed to almost have more of him to make that scene effective.
Right.
But I didn't love him being like, oh, this is where you guys find out you're ta'veren.
Yeah, I didn't love that type of reveal. I don't know what their plan is with killing off Loyal. I feel like he'll be brought back just because this is an important character to the series, or if that's their way to get rid of him, odd choice.
He's still breathing when he's on the floor. So that gives me hope.
I also I think the thing that I didn't like the most was that this seems so PC. The whole episode seemed like it had all the pieces, but when you put them together the way that they did, it seemed choppy, and I kind of would have preferred less like cutting away from one situation going to another one, and either like having a full episode dedicated to like Rand and Moiraine in the Blight, or a full episode dedicated to the Fall Dara thing, or more time spent there, less cutting away, because it was a little bit jarring at times to go from a fight scene to like that dream sequence and back and forth. That was a little jarring to me, but I feel like all the pieces were there in this episode. I just don't know if I was like completely okay with how they put it together.
You know what? I really like what you just said. I think it should have been 2 episodes. I think Fall Dara and the Battle of Fall Dara should have been 1. There should have been more put on the Padan Fain of it all, where like he battles with some of them in the Murdral, and like I think that would have been really effective. And then to have an episode where it's Moiraine and Rand traveling through the Blight, Lan following after them, because we found out he left in the episode before during the Battle of Fall Dara. You know,
can you get closer to the mic?
Yeah, sorry. So I think it would have been more effective to have Moiraine and Rand in one episode going towards the Blight. Lana's following them because he left during the Fall Dara stuff the episode before. And then Rand gets sucked into the dream sequence. He thinks it might actually be real, or he's hoping. And it's like, again, him going through his denial, where he's like, I just had the weirdest dreams. He gets to see his dad again. He gets to see Matt again. but things aren't connecting for him, or he keeps hearing the black wind somehow. Like having that be it instead of like, hey, make a copy of your girlfriend. All of that could have been a much more effective way to have him fight the Dark One.
Sure.
But I think that they rushed this episode a little bit.
Ideal situation, they would have had 10 episodes. And I think that they could have pulled this off a lot better. This is obviously the situation we were given. It was 8 episodes. And I think for what it was fine. It wasn't my favorite episode, but it wasn't my least favorite episode either. And like I said, like initial watch, I was like, I don't know how to feel about this. But reflecting back, I'm okay with it because I think that the pieces are there to move forward and that they have done enough of what they should have, even though I didn't like everything that they did in the finale.
Laura will forever wish that the tree had a longer saying on it. That's all.
Yeah, that's the main takeaway, is that I wanted a full romance novel on the tree.
I get it. I really do. Overall, what did you think of the season?
I really, really liked it. I thought the TV show was so good. I think they've handled things that were really touchy in the books very well. And I'm looking forward to where they take the show. So I was really pleased with it overall as a whole. How about you?
I loved it. I really did. I thought it was amazing. I thought every kind of critique you and I have had of this series so far, they've fixed a ton of it. I'm really interested of the book series. I'm really interested to see. You and I talked a little bit with this and Veronica in the last episode. It goes into spoilers, but I'm really interested as someone who thinks about things as a story with overarching arcs. I'm really interested to see where they take a couple things, like in the next season. Like, how will they react once they find out Rand tried to fake his own death? How will each of the characters interact? How will we see certain things that we know happen in the TV series play out? I think that they're giving stakes to everything that didn't have stakes in the books. And as someone who like writes from a structure of repercussions of people's actions, I can't wait to see, because it feels like they're actually dealing with that. Like they're going to deal with some of Moiraine's repercussions with her being shielded or stilled. They're dealing with, like, I think that they will do good things for, because I think like love what they're doing with this Nynaeve character, but I could see even if like Lan comes back, there's still going to be issues of him feeling so attuned to needing to help Moiraine that there's going to be a lot of conflict between the two of them. Because just for people who didn't read the books, Moiraine was not stilled or shielded in the books. So this is a huge divergence. And at first, I think you and I didn't know what to do with that. But knowing how TV shows handle this kind of thing, I'm interested to see where they go. And I'm trusting this show so far to not disappoint me with certain storylines. They may or they may not. But I'm really excited to see a very specific storyline happen, as you know. I can't wait to see what comes next. I will miss the original Matt, but...
Hannah, you've been kind of holding out on like who your favorite character and what your favorite episode has been. So I have really enjoyed Nynaeve and Moiraine. I think those are my favorite characters.
I think Moiraine and Lan are my favorite characters.
Okay.
I think I really love I would say Nynaeve is a close third in the first series. In the first season. Sometimes her naiveness ruins it a little bit for me. But
which that's saying a lot if you ranked her your third favorite, because you are not a Nynaeve fan, as you have gone on record.
I hate her in the book. Book 11, I'm just like, Nynaeve, shut up a little bit. I don't think it's Nynaeve's fault all the time. I think mostly it's Robert Jordan's fault.
I mean, always Robert Jordan's fault. He's the one that created the character, so
it's always Robert Jordan's fault. So I love the way he made Nynaeve a human in this. Like, I think you always saw her humanity. I think that
this is the way that people who have loved Nynaeve from the beginning have pictured her in the books.
Right.
And I think a lot of people who come at the book series and don't like Nynaeve, they're like, oh wow, Nynaeve would have been so much better if she was like this in the books. And some of the naive stands from the books are like, oh, we always kind of saw her like this. So I think it's interesting.
Well, and that goes to our theory, again, our overarching theory of the women in these books is it's not what Robert Jordan created, it's what you push into these women.
Sure.
And like a queen, I push in a lot of different things that you don't necessarily see in a queen. That does not mean my reading of a queen is right and yours is wrong. It means you and I have two distinct personalities. So I do think the show still has things where people get to disagree, but overall, I think the show is doing an amazing job. I cannot wait to see where they go. And yeah, what are your ratings for all the episodes?
How many episodes are there? I'm trying to remember.
There are 8.
So I think I like the 7th one the best.
Okay.
And then 4, then 6, then trying to remember now. 6, then 5, then 8, I think. And then 1 and 3 are about equal, and then 2 last.
I would say you and I have the same rating.
Okay.
So, hey, Laura and I agree.
Yeah, I liked 7 the best out of all of them, but that was just a really excellent episode.
I really think that, again, I can't wait to rewatch it with episode 7 in mind, just to see how Rand is acting, knowing what's going on in his brain.
Is this something you're gonna like rewatch like soon, or?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on like how much time. Right now I'm staying at my dad's because my cousin had COVID. So I'm not really like invested in watching anything with him right now. Sure. But I could see myself rewatching it like in the next 6 months, and like actually thinking about how it played out. I think if we had recorded later this week, I would have just rewatched them all just to see how I felt. But I do think it'll be more. I think the show might be better and better as you rewatch, because you get to experience more of things you're missing and little Easter eggs. Like you saying, you started noticing Pot on Fane in the background and stuff like that. I think that will be much more effective on rewatch, and like seeing Tom's cloak, because I didn't see that the first time around. Like I think sometimes learning from other people what they saw is very exciting.
Sure. I think it's something that I probably will not rewatch until before the next season comes out, but that's just me.
Depends on if like you're a rewatcher about things like this. I tend to get obsessive.
I tend not to rewatch this type of show. I'm more of like a rewatch comfort comedy shows for whatever reason. But like I love Ozark, but that's not one where I'm like, I'm gonna rewatch all of them again. I'm rewatching Ozark. Like, no, I don't rewatch that show.
I sometimes fall asleep to Criminal Minds, so I don't really think I have a leg to stand on.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm glad we watched all the seasons together. I'm glad we did this last episode together. Any comments before we close out this bonus?
No, I just hope fans give it a chance, because I thought it was really good, and I realized that it's caused a lot of stir, and I'm sorry if people were disappointed with it, but I think that there's probably a pretty big group of people that feel like this is a better representation not only of women, but of just women in relationships in general. So, and I get it if people love the book series, but a lot of times these things weren't handled as well in the books. So it is refreshing to have a story that we like be told from a perspective that treats women a lot better in many scenarios. So
I also
try to keep an open mind and just remember it's adaptation. And
I think people need to learn how to get rid of their adaptation brain, where it's like, I wanted a word for word reincarnation. It's like, okay, we're not 7 anymore. Stop. And B, I think sometimes people are reactive towards the Robert Jordan of it all, where they're like, he wanted to build an inclusive system. And it's like, okay, maybe if you'd written this book in 2021, it would have been better. It would have been just as good as this. He didn't. He was an old man in the 90s. And we have to understand that the world keeps on growing, even if you don't want it to. Like,
sure,
the world is a different place than it was in the 90s. Thank God. And just celebrate that we've come so far, that this show, which was always intended to be inclusive of women and their emotions and feelings, was able to take this blueprint and create something that is inclusive for our age. And maybe by 2040, people will think it's sexist. And guess what?
Sure.
Okay.
Right.
We grow. Movies I thought were funny in the 90s, I don't think are funny anymore. Like, you just have to be able to let things go.
Sure.
And stop letting your ego dictate what you like.
Sure.
So back to Laura said it much nicer. Give it a chance.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for joining us. Again, this will be the last TV Tuesday for a while, but we had a ton of fun. And I want to give a big shout out to all the people who came along this journey with us. Make sure you guys are following Story Darlings, Fiction Fans, Ronnie Reads Regularly, and Literature and Lo-Fi, because they're all so amazing. And
make sure you have literature and lo-fi videos on loop in the background at all times.
At all times. And we may have everyone on in the future, more episodes with Bobby and more episodes with other guests. So until then, thank you guys for joining us on our TV Tuesday journeys. Bye.
Bye.